Chapter 784. However, could the Gorfiend group really be so fearless as to help Yan Zhan obtain 50 honor points for free? Yi Qing Luo didn't believe it. Otherwise, the leader of the Blood Demon group would not be holding this mission scroll and angrily scolding Yan Zhan and Big Beard. Every man for himself, and heaven and earth destroy him. Not to mention an ambitious regiment commander. If this was any other time, it would be fine if he couldn't complete this mission. But now, their Blood Demon group had also participated in the competition with the World group. If they lost to a Bronze mercenary group, a newly established mercenary group made up of a bunch of kids, what face would they have left in the mercenary world? Now, the World group's chance of victory has increased to 50%. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she smiled lightly, her half-squinted eyes curved into an enchanting arc, blossoming with a captivating charm. Tong Ziqing looked at Zhao Bo. What's our mission? Everyone turned to look at Zhang Xian. Compared to the random missions of other mercenary groups, they were more concerned about the content of their random mission. Zhao Bo took a look at Long Yunzhan and Yi Qing Luo, and seeing that the both of them had no intention to stop him, he then untied the golden silk ribbon on the scroll. Just as she was about to open the scroll, Yi Qing Luo smiled at Peach. Peach, I have something to talk to you in private. Everyone was taken aback. Zhao Bo's hand paused in the middle of opening the scroll. Peach was engrossed in the scroll in Zhao Bo's hands when she suddenly heard Yi Qing Luo's words, and her eyes flashed slightly. Then, her lips curled into a mischievous smile. Okay. There was no complaint or dissatisfaction on Peach's face. She still had a faint smile on her face, and when her watery eyes gazed at Yi Qing Luo, it was still clear without any impurities. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled as she stretched out her hand. Peach placed her hand in Yi Qing Luo's palm, and the two of them walked forward together. The two of them walked in the opposite direction of the mercenary union. After walking for about half an incense stick's time, there was no one else around. Yi Qing Luo's cold voice suddenly rang. Are you blaming me? I don't blame you, Peach answered simply. If I were you, I would have done the same. This amiable and adorable lass, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but chuckled as she stretched out her hand and caressed her head. Thank you for understanding my feelings. He didn't want Peach to know the contents of the random mission because he was suspicious of Peach. On the contrary, she really liked this smart and obedient girl. The reason why he didn't let Peach know was because of Peach's identity. The leader of 3,000 peach blossoms. As the leader of a regiment, there were too many things he had to do. Yi Qing Luo could not risk her own team. But I do have something to discuss with you. Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks. A sly smile appeared in Peach's bright eyes. You want to tell me that Miss Yen likes Xiao Jin, right? Not expecting Peach to be so straightforward, Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned and immediately smiled. Not only does Xiao Yi like Jin Zi, I think, you can also tell that Jin Zi towards Xiao Yi is also. I know. Peach was still smiling, and the dimples on her cheeks were very attractive. That kind of smile, sweet and calm, but it made people feel a trace of sadness. A fleeting sadness. While Yi Qing Luo was thinking about this feeling, Peach continued with a smile. In the mercenary union, when I saw Xiao Jin being so obedient and gentle towards Miss Yen, I could tell. Yes, Xiao Jin and Yan Xiao Yi were attracted to each other and liked each other deeply. Then you. Chapter 785. I admit, I like Xiao Jin. Peach calmly curled her lips as she faced Yi Qing Luo, opened her arms and slowly retreated, as though she was hugging the sun. But this kind of liking is only limited to my feelings towards a man. To put it more accurately, this feeling is admiration. She gave an extremely satisfied smile as her tone was relaxed. My liking towards him doesn't have that kind of impulse which makes me want to get him, to make him my man. These words made the expression on Yi Qing Luo's face change slightly. After a long time, the luster in her eyes revealed some gentleness. I don't know what good fortune Xiao Jin had accumulated in his past life, to actually have the honor to make you feel moved by him. Peach wasn't pretentious as she gave a sweet smile. Yes, to be able to make me feel moved. It is indeed his good fortune in his past life. This kind of intelligent and unpretentious girl, Yiqing Luo had always liked it. Moreover, Peach's lips curled up craftily as she blinked her eyes and smiled. Those two slow and arrogant people, if I don't add fuel to the fire, when will they be able to recognize their own hearts? This was indeed a serious question. If it was based on the progress of those two people, probably her and Dmo Xian's child was already a bystander and the two of them had yet to talk about being happily together. Cough, cough, cough. Why did she think of giving birth to a child with Dmo Xian? Yiqing Luo rubbed her face, trying her best to ease the redness on her face. But unexpectedly, just as she was about to put down her arms, Peach had already hooked onto her arm. I originally didn't intend to bring the Peach Blossom 3000 to take part in the random mission, but I heard that the world group would be coming, so I came today to be able to pluck up the courage to talk to you. Even if the first heartfelt relationship had ended before it even started, I still feel that it's worth it. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to speak, the little girl released her arm. Her delicate little face was filled with adoration and love towards Yiqing Luo. Goddess, I still need to lead the group to complete the mission, so I won't disturb you any further. See you at the academy. Saying that, Peach had already turned around. The peach-colored dress was like a blooming peach blossom, drifting away with the wind. Looking at Peach's departing figure, Yiqing Luo sighed slightly. This girl was too obedient. So obedient that it made one's heart ache. When Yiqing Luo returned to the world group's location, the few of them were huddled together, frowning deeply. Yan Xiaoyi had also returned and was discussing something with Xiao Bo. The more they talked, the tighter her brows knitted together. On seeing Yiqing Luo's return, the few of them immediately welcomed her. Xiao Jin looked around. Where's the peach? Chapter 786. On the mission scroll, a few words were clearly marked. Complex grade, experience training mission. Complex grade. Complex. Mixed. Level. Yiqing Luo's hand shook as she took over the mission scroll and blinked her eyes. She didn't see it wrongly, it was really the words, complex grade. Even if it was a complex grade experience training mission, it was equivalent to a high-grade rare mission. Complex grade missions were usually accepted by gold medal mercenary groups. Even a silver plate elite mercenary group might not necessarily accept a complex level mission. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched a few times. Wasn't their group's development a little too fast? On the first day of establishment, they had already accepted a high-grade rare mission which surpassed the high-grade rare mission. And almost lost their lives. Now, another complex grade mission had arrived. The mission content is to head towards Ling Ling King's tomb and bring the King Corpse Guard's coffin back to the Mercenary Association. Xiao Bo explained the mission in a concise and comprehensive manner. Ling Ling King's tomb. Yiqing Luo had heard of this place before. Ling Ling King was the war god from 1,000 years ago. He was sent to Nirvana Realm by the upper three realms to protect Nirvana Realm and maintain peace in Nirvana Realm. In the end, in order to protect Nirvana Realm, he died in that incomparable battle 1,000 years ago. Nirvana Realm's four great sects paid their respects to Ling Ling King and built a tomb for him which was located in the West Continent and Chaotic Realm which was adjacent to each other. Because of Ling Ling King's esteemed status, the four great sects patriarchs worked together to borrow a large portion of Death God Castle's arrays and mechanisms to protect Ling Ling King's tomb. It could be said that Ling Ling King's tomb was a place which numerous grave robbers wanted to infiltrate. But now that 1,000 years had passed, there was no news of any grave robber successfully infiltrating or coming out after infiltrating. Because of this, Ling Ling King's tomb became more and more legendary. Some even said that Ling Ling King wasn't dead at all. He was in Ling Ling King's tomb, silently guarding Nirvana realm. Some also said that it was the war god's soul, stopping all intruders who wanted to blaspheme his name. In the mission, the king corpse guard in front of Ling Ling King's tomb was also the target which everyone talked about. This corpse king was once a corpse puppet created by the 4 sect masters from tens of thousands of corpses that had died violent deaths. Then, he combined the powers of the 4 great sect masters to set up a formation for the corpse puppets. If someone tried to invade the main tomb, this corpse puppet would disregard everything and take the intruder's life. Then, it would merge the intruder's corpse chi and become a part of the corpse puppet. Therefore, this corpse puppet was known as the Guardian Corpse King. Their mission was to carry this corpse puppet's coffin out of the tomb of the Ling King and send it to the mercenary guild. This was undoubtedly courting death. It was no wonder that the youths were filled with melancholy. There was no way he could complete this mission. This mission was actually accepted by us. Mo Han Shang gave a bitter smile as his lips twitched. This mission had already been listed into the Mercenary Association's mission program over a month ago, but for an entire month, not a single mercenary group was willing to accept this mission. Of course, no mercenary group would accept it. Even a gold-ranked mercenary group would not take such a risk. Mo Han Shang continued to smile bitterly. Our group's luck, there's no one else like it. This was the last chance for the random mission. If they didn't complete it, it would be considered as giving up and another 100 honor points would be deducted. Giving up on that low-level training mission had already consumed 100 honor points. The world group's current honor points were only left with 90+ points and there was no way for them to give up on this mission. Chapter 787. Leader, Vice Leader, what should we do? Zhao Bo asked with an ugly expression. This was the first time he was doing a mission with a group ever since he joined the world group. He didn't expect to receive such a mission. As a veteran mercenary, Zhao Bo had a good understanding of the situation and danger levels of the various places in the Nirvana realm. The tomb of the Ling King was definitely a place they could not step into. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she exchanged glances with Long Yunzhan, reading the same thoughts from his eyes. Let's give it a try. How would we know if we don't try? Yiqing Luo rolled up the scroll and stuffed it back into Zhao Bo's arms. If you try, there might not be any hope. But if you don't try, there's definitely no hope at all. If it doesn't work, we'll retreat. Regardless of the danger, since this mission had landed in the world group's hands, she should have led the world group to give it her all and not shake her head and advise everyone to give up before they had even done anything. This was not her style. This was also not the style of the world group. The young mercenaries replied in unison, yes. Yiqing Luo's existence was their hope, their miracle. Even if it was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, as long as Yiqing Luo nodded her head, they would march forward bravely without any fear. Because they knew. No matter how dangerous it was ahead, Yiqing Luo would travel together with them. Furthermore, he would do everything in his power to ensure their safety. Zhao Bo and the others were slightly taken aback. As though he had not expected that Yiqing Luo would choose to head towards King Ling's tomb. As though she had not expected that these youngsters, after hearing about the dangers of King Ling's tomb, would still unwaveringly agree with Yiqing Luo's words. Then, the 20 or so old mercenaries grinned and laughed. Wasn't this the feeling they were pursuing? Yiqing Luo was indeed a lady filled with hope. Yiqing Luo naturally wouldn't head over rashly due to the dangers of Ling King's tomb. What's more, she still had to go back at night to give Ziling acupuncture treatment. Because of this, she had everyone return to the old mansion first, then had Xiao Jin and Yan Xiao Yi go to the 3,000 peach blossoms and spend some money to obtain all the information about the Ling King's tomb. After all, this was a place where one's life was at stake. One had to be careful. The group of people returned to the old house in a mighty manner. When he walked in to ask around, he saw Holy Pirate holding a shiny gold bottle and carefully wiping it. He looked very sincere. "Grandpa Pirate, what are you doing?" Kitty Lee blinked her bright eyes. She looked at Holy Pirate with confusion. As he spoke, his small body quickly leaped over. Xiao Qiao's hand was already on Holy Pirate's shoulder. Bang! There was a loud noise as Holy Pirate's hand shook. The golden bottle in his hand fell to the ground and made a loud sound. "My golden bottle!" Holy Pirate knelt on the ground. His hands trembled as he tried to pick up the golden bottle, but his hands were shaking so much that he could not pick up the golden bottle. Holy Pirate's wrinkled face was full of sorrow. It was as if the thing he treasured the most had fallen to the ground and shattered. Kitty Lee was frightened by Stolen Saint's appearance. It was not that she was curious, but Holy Pirate's sincere attitude toward the golden bottle made her nervous. The mercenaries around them were also shocked. Only Xiao Bo and the others acted as if they were used to it. They picked up their teapots and went to the back hall to brew tea. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she walked directly to the front of Holy Pirate. She bent down and picked up the golden bottle. Holy Pirate's vision was glued onto the golden bottle as he followed Yiqing Luo's gaze. Chapter 788. It's made of gold, it won't break, what are you crying for? Yiqing Luo casually placed the golden bottle on the table. Holy Pirate put on a long face. Because it is a gold bottle, it should be kept safe. How can you be contaminated by the dust of the mortal world? This was the first time Yiqing Luo met someone who regarded gold as his life. He finally understood why Holy Pirate would walk the path of Holy Pirate. He was a person who was obsessed with gold. The fastest way to collect all the gold in the world was to steal. Didn't you go to the mercenary union to accept the mission? Why did you come back? God Thief hugged the golden bottle which Yiqing Luo had casually placed back into his arms, as though he was hugging a baby who was not even a month old, as he asked in disdain. If they had not suddenly returned, his golden vase would not have fallen to the ground. This hall, although it was called a hall, was more like a meeting hall. After God Thief had modified it, it was extremely spacious. It could accommodate at least 200 people. Yiqing Luo invited the other young mercenaries to sit down. She casually sat down next to Holy Pirate and supported her head with one arm. She lazily said, "I encountered a difficult mission. I have to investigate the general situation of the mission before I can act." She pointed at the teenagers around her. "Here, I'll leave these people in your care today. We'll depart tomorrow." Troublesome. God Thief raised his brows as he squinted at Yiqing Luo with interest as he put down the golden bottle in his hand. "You also have times when you're in a sticky situation." Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes. "I'm also human." She was only a low-level profound practitioner, and her current strength wasn't strong to the point where she could summon clouds and rain with a flip of her hand, so why hadn't there been times when she was in trouble? Could it be that in Holy Pirate's eyes, she had become a god? As though he had seen through Yiqing Luo's thoughts, God Thief sat down next to her. "If you're not a Grand Luo immortal, then how are you going to save me from Death God Castle's underground prison?" Death God Castle. Xiao Bo was stunned. You're really God Pirate." At first, when he heard Holy Pirate shout, he thought he was worshipping Holy Pirate. However, when he heard about Death God Castle, he thought about Holy Pirate's skills. Xiao Bo seemed to have understood something. In his memory, the name of Saint Thief had fallen in Death God Castle for a total of 10 years. He then linked it to the news that the World Group had received a rare mission, and after completing it, they became a bronze plate mercenary group. Then, this mission was definitely related to Death God Castle. And in the process of doing the task, he also brought out Holy Pirate. Suddenly, Xiao Bo was filled with confidence for the quest in the tomb of the Ling King. Holy Pirate frowned. He pointed at his nouveau riche outfit and said, "Of course, I am the real Holy Pirate. How could I be fake?" The mercenaries present had all heard of the legend of Holy Pirate. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that the nouveau riche old man in front of him was completely different from how the legends described him. Faced with everyone's doubtful gazes, Holy Pirate snorted arrogantly. "Tell me, what is the mission this time?" Everyone was taken aback. Yiqing Luo's curly long eyelashes fluttered as she reacted, "Are you going to help us?" Holy Pirate had white hair on his temples. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Since you saved me, I naturally have to repay you. I, Holy Pirate, have to repay kindness." Yiqing Luo wasn't bashful at all. Right now, Dmo Xian had returned to the imperial palace to settle some matters. Something which required Dmo Xian to return personally to settle would definitely be tricky. At this juncture, Yiqing Luo couldn't trouble Dmo Xian. The information and contents of the Ling King's tomb could only rely on the information provided by the 3,000 peach blossoms. If she had Holy Pirate's help, not only would the mission completion rate increase. Latest by tomorrow. Yiqing Luo thought for a moment and set a time. After giving Ziling acupuncture tonight, she should be able to get out of bed tomorrow and do the simplest of rehabilitation operations. Yan Xiao Yi and Qiao Jin should be able to bring back the information about the Ling King's tomb tonight. It was about time to depart tomorrow. Holy Pirate nodded. He stretched his body and said, "It has been years since I last moved my old bones. Tomorrow, I will be able to stretch them out. Don't torment your old bones." Yiqing Luo stood up, "I'll make a trip back to Three Springs Sect first and come back tonight." Three Springs Sect. Yiqing Luo had just returned to the courtyard when she heard Hong Mei mention that old Madame Ye's memorial tablet had already been sent to the courtyard by old Madame Ye early in the morning. Hong Mei had already prepared a small-scale ancestral hall in the courtyard and had invited the Daoist to perform the ritual, placing Madame Ye's memorial tablet in the courtyard. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her expression remained calm. She didn't say that she was going to thank old Madame, but directly went to the small ancestral hall. After staying in the ancestral hall for 1 hour, Yiqing Luo then came out. Chapter 790. 7th Miss, old Matron Wang is here. Hong Mei went up and lowered her voice. Old Matron Wang, old Madame's attendant. Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised. Old Madame's spies were everywhere in and out of Three Springs Sect residence. She didn't intentionally hide her return. Old Madame had a favor to ask of her, so naturally she would keep an eye on her movements. Yiqing Luo nodded and didn't ask what old Madame Wang had said. Instead she asked about Ziling's condition. Hong Mei was feeling anxious, but on seeing Yiqing Luo's composure, she could only go along with Yiqing Luo's words. Ziling is an obedient lady and is recovering very well. Did old Madame look for Ziling? Hong Mei shook her head. Old Madame has been chanting scriptures in the nunnery today, and third Madame is accompanying old Madame to copy the scriptures. As old Madame was devoted to Buddhism, a nunnery was set up in old Madame's courtyard. Old Madame's favorite place was the nunnery. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. Old Madame must have taken her mother's memorial tablet and recalled how she had harmed her mother that year. Hence she felt guilty and wanted to go to the nunnery to ease her mood. When she was young, she had done too many evil deeds. When she was old, even if she was devoted to Buddha and was full of Buddhist teachings, it was unable to cover up her bloody hands. Let's go to old Madame. Yiqing Luo concealed the chill in her eyes as she said calmly. Hong Mei heaved a sigh of relief and immediately reminded, Sovereign has also received the news and rushed back. He's now in eldest young Miss courtyard. Eldest young Miss. Yi Qingqian. What were Yi Tianquang and old madam doing in Yi Qingqian's courtyard? Second prince sent eldest young miss back. Hong Mei's gaze swept the surroundings and immediately went forward to support Yi Qing Luo respectfully as she whispered into her ear. I heard that when second prince sent eldest young miss back, his expression was extremely terrible and eldest young miss's face was filled with tears. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows in interest. Ling Fengning actually sent Yi Qingqian back. Did it mean that he had given up on Yi Qingqian? He had yet to recoup his losses from Yi Qingqian. Was Ling Fengning really willing to give up? Let's go to eldest sister's courtyard to take a look. To be able to force Yi Tianquang back, Yi Qingqian's matter this time was not small at all. Other than Hong Mei, Yi Qing Luo couldn't find another trustworthy person in the courtyard. Naturally, he left Hong Mei in the courtyard. She went straight to Yi Qingjian's courtyard. Just as he reached the door, he saw old maid Wang standing there. Apparently, the matter of her coming to Yi Qingqian's courtyard had already been notified to old grand madam. Seventh young miss, you're finally back. Old madam has been nagging about you for the entire day. Old Madam Wang's lips curled into a smile as she walked up and held onto Yi Qing Luo's arm. Her attitude represented her ancestors' attitude. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. From the looks of it, Yi Qingqian's white lotus skill had failed this time round. The old ancestor's heart was now on her side. Yi Qing Luo didn't reply to her, so old Madam Wang continued to nag on about how concerned this old madam was towards her. Not too long later, the both of them arrived at Yi Qingqian's room. Standing outside the door not too far away, they could hear Yi Qingqian sobbing as well as Yi Tianquang's furious curses. Occasionally, old grand madam's icy cold voice would be heard, Qian, the child in your womb, whose is it? You must tell this old one clearly. It's second prince's. Second prince's. Yi Qingqian whimpered in agony, old grand madam, don't you dote on me the most, don't you trust me the most, why is it that I've told you so many times, you still don't believe me? Chapter 791. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows in interest as her slender fingers caressed her smooth lower jaw. It turned out that old grand madam had found out about Yi Qingqian's pregnancy. Thinking about it, she said that Yi Qingqian was pregnant in front of thousands of people at the academy's entrance and guessed the father of this child. This news naturally spread like wildfire. Moreover, Yi Qingqian had not only lost her chastity in front of the old minister and second prince, but in front of thousands of people. Everyone saw it clearly. How could old madam, who had always cherished her reputation, tolerate this? Otherwise, old madam would not have expressed goodwill to her time and time again. She even personally brought her mother's memorial tablet over. Vile spawn! Vile spawn! Yi Tianquang's furious voice was extremely loud. How could my Yi family raise such a shameless girl like you? This child is already 2 months old. How could it be second prince's? Yi Qingqian only sobbed softly. No matter what, this child, Yi Qingqian could only push it to Ling Fengning. Otherwise, not to mention that this child could not be kept. Even her life would probably be killed by Yi Tianquang in order to wash away the Yi family's humiliation. Eldest young miss, this matter is not a small matter. If this reaches the monarch, it will not be easy to clean up. Lady Baiming's voice was gentle. Yi Tianquang heard that and immediately flew into a rage as he quickly walked to the bedside and grabbed Yi Qingqian's clothes. Vile spawn! Tell me quickly. Whose child is in your womb? Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. This Lady Baiming was indeed an intelligent lady. She looked as though she was worried for the Yi family, but in actual fact, she had grasped Yi Tianquang's thoughts. Yi Tianquang was most concerned about his current status. How would he dare to offend the current monarch? If it was eldest Prince Ling Fenghua's child. Yi Tianquang could still directly hand the child over to the monarch and on account of the child, send Yi Qingqian to King Ping's fief. But if this child was Ling Fengying's, which meant that after Yi Qingqian snatched her sister's fiancé, she also hooked up with second prince at the same time. This was the royal family scandal. Right now, in the entire royal family, only second prince Ling Fengying was able to assume the position of crown prince. If this scandal were to spread, if Ling Fengying really became the crown prince, not only would the civil and military officials not be able to accept it, even the commoners would not be able to accept such a crown prince as their future monarch. This could easily cause panic in the Western continent. If the monarch were to find out about this, he would definitely punish the Yi clan and push all the blame onto the Yi clan in order to protect the royal family's reputation. As for Yi Qingqian's thoughts, Yi Qingluo was very clear about it. He admitted that the child was Ling Fenghua's. Yi Qingqian would definitely be sent to King Ping's fief. Ling Fenghua's personality, after he had fallen this time, he had completely darkened. If he were to see Yi Qingqian, this woman who had betrayed him, how would he treat her? He was afraid that Yi Qingqian's life would be worse than death. As for the child in her belly, would Ling Fenghua believe that it was his? On the contrary, they could only grab onto Ling Fengying this life-saving straw tightly, in order to have a chance of survival. If Ling Fengying wanted to give up this chess piece of his, Yi Qingqian would definitely rather die in glory than live in disgrace. Insisting that this child was Ling Fengying's, Ling Fengying could forget about becoming the crown prince properly. Yi Qingqian had probably never thought that there would be a day where she would end up in such a state. If she wanted to blame, she could only blame her cheap mouth. Ling Fengying had probably never thought that he had schemed for so many years, just for a chance to climb up, but now his most fatal weakness was held by a woman. If she wanted to blame, she could only blame him for being greedy. Yi Qingluo's slender brows raised slightly as she revealed a treacherous sneer. In the blink of an eye, the silhouette beside Yi Qingqian's ear was already standing at the door of the room. At the same time, Yi Qingqian spurted out a mouthful of blood. In that blood, there was actually a piece of minced meat. She was so angry that she spat out the blood in her heart. Yi Qingqian lay weakly on the bed, her resentful and hateful gaze locked on Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo, even if I become a ghost, I will not let you off. She tore her throat, sharp and resentful. Like a curse, it went straight into Yi Qingluo's eardrums. Chapter 793. However, standing at the door, the cursed main character glanced at her with a faint smile. Elder sister, you can't do anything to me as a human, let alone as a ghost. After speaking, Yi Qingluo no longer cared about Yi Qingqian's unwillingness and hatred. She turned around and left Yi Qingqian's room. For a woman like Yi Qingqian, her heart and worldview had long lost the existence of the three views. To Yi Qingqian, she only felt that everything that she had done was right and proper. And those who disobeyed her and stopped her were not tolerated by heaven and earth. Yi Qingqian was jealous of Yi Qingluo's position as the first wife's daughter, jealous that Yi Qingluo could be engaged to Ling Fenghua and become the future crown princess. Therefore, she humiliated Yi Qingluo, framed her and even snatched Ling Fenghua to prove that she was stronger than the first wife's daughter. But Yi Qingqian had never thought about it. Was the first wife's daughter what Yi Qingluo wanted? Moreover, even if Yi Qingluo was the first wife's daughter, wasn't Yi Qingluo's life more miserable than a servant's? At least Yi Qingqian had a mother who loved her dearly and a father who loved her. Even the cold and sinister old ancestor loved her. What else could she not be satisfied with? It was just Yi Qingqian's own greed. But she had to put all the blame on herself. All of this, Yi Qingqian only had herself to blame and no one else. In the hall, the table was full of delicacies. Yi Qingluo lazily leaned on the soft chair and slowly ate the food. On the opposite side, the three people looked at each other. After a while, Yi Tianquang couldn't help but put down the chopsticks in his hand and carefully looked at Yi Qing Luo. Luo, you must be tired during these days in the academy. Father knows the academy is on vacation and specially asked for a few days to accompany you at home. Yi Qing Luo's action of eating didn't have the slightest pause. She just lazily lifted her eyelids and glanced at Yi Tianquang. This glance made Yi Tianquang tremble all over. An inexplicable chill ran down his spine. Yi Tianquang rubbed his eyes and looked carefully again. Yi Qing Luo had already lowered her head and didn't look at him again. Wherever you want to go to play, Father will accompany you. Yi Tianquang took a deep breath, calmed down the shock in his heart, and maintained the kind expression on his face. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into an arc of ridicule as she lazily raised her arm to support half of her face. Her smile was extremely lazy, but it also added a bit of liveliness. Her tone was extremely casual, which made her seem even more like a hooligan. Father, shouldn't you reprimand me for making eldest sister's pregnancy known to the world like before? Are you reprimanding me for stripping big sister's clothes in public and ruining the Three Springs sect's reputation? The smile on Yi Tianquang's face froze. Seeing the man, Yi Tianquang's face immediately revealed a happy expression. Even the elder ancestor, who had always been sinister and taciturn, revealed joy from the bottom of his heart. This man was none other than the second young master of the Yi clan, Yi Fengru, who was known as the steward of the Yi clan. I just came back. Yi Fengru poured himself a cup of tea and took a sip. The smile on his face didn't diminish. I didn't expect that as soon as I returned, would see Lord Father making fun of seventh younger sister. At the mention of Yi Qing Luo, the happiness on Yi Tianquang's face froze. He lifted his sleeves and wiped his face, wiping away that greasy touch. Making fun. Yi Fengru was slightly startled, and immediately looked at Yi Qing Luo meaningfully. Seventh younger sister didn't tell Lord Father and old ancestor about your own deeds. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows slightly raised as she met his pair of warm eyes. Her eyes were covered with a faint layer of deep thought. These words came from the mouth of their second grandson, whom they had always trusted and loved. It had to be 100% truth. Yi Qing Luo, class of gods. And he even refused. Since when did Yi Qing Luo have such a powerful ability? Yi Qing Luo's half-squinted eyes slowly surfaced a layer of frost. He listened to Yi Fengru tell him everything about his school. She was surprised, but on second thought, she felt relieved. Yi Fengru's aptitude would definitely be able to enter the Heavenly Academy. It should be intermediate class 2 or high class students. What made her curious was that she had never heard of Yi Fengru's name in the academy. It was reasonable to say that this second brother of hers, whether it was his background, appearance, or ability, should be outstanding in the eyes of the students. Facing Yi Qing Luo's curious gaze, Yi Fengru only curled his lips, revealing a warm smile. Yi Qing Luo's slender eyebrows gently knitted. Instead, that mercenary corps was a gold medal mercenary corps. Gold medal. This also meant that this mercenary group was powerful and had a high status in the mercenary world. When they set out, there was basically no mission that they could not complete. If their mission was the same as that gold medal mercenary group's, they would definitely not be able to compete with the gold mercenary group. Vice leader, if it's a gold-ranked mercenary group, we have no chance of winning. Tong Ziqing frowned as she looked at Yi Qing Luo. Just now, they had been discussing this issue. It was not a wise move to snatch something from a gold medal mercenary group. Moreover, it was very likely that he would incur the wrath of the gold-ranked mercenary group. By then, it would definitely affect the world group's development. Because of this, they had been waiting for Yi Qing Luo's idea. Chapter 797. The main hall fell into a state of silence. quite a number of mercenaries' faces surfaced a look of shame. Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. The motive of establishing a mercenary group isn't for the mission but to train everyone better. She propped up her head as her expression didn't have much fluctuation of emotions. The real motive of heading to King Ling's tomb is to train you on how to deal with any situation, and not to complete the so-called mission. Of course, if you're able to complete the mission, then that's the best. If you're not able to complete it, but if you're able to learn something from the mission, then it's worth it. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, her half-squinted eyes slowly swept past those mercenaries who lowered their heads in silence. The entire main hall's atmosphere was extremely cold. After a long while, Yiqing Luo softened her tone as she spoke word by word. I want you to remember one point. The motive of us doing missions isn't to complete the mission, but in the process of completing the mission, we're training ourselves, tempering ourselves, and obtaining improvement. This is the most important prerequisite for us to complete the mission. Yiqing Luo didn't wish for her own bunch of brothers to be like the other mercenary groups, to become mission machines. To tell the truth, towards these mercenary groups' missions, whether they were able to complete it or not, wasn't especially important to Yiqing Luo. What she cared about was these brothers. In the process of completing the mission, what did they learn, and what did they improve? The young mercenaries slowly raised their heads, and after looking at Yiqing Luo for some time, they nodded their heads vigorously as they responded in unison, yes. Zhao Bo and the others who were standing by the side also had a smile in their eyes. Indeed, their choice wasn't wrong. The world group was indeed different from the other groups. The world group, perhaps, wouldn't be the best developed group. But it was the most heartwarming group. This was a home, a real home. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as the expression on her face became extremely gentle. Everyone rest early. We'll be setting off early tomorrow morning and we must use our best spirit to receive tomorrow's challenge. Yes, Vice Group Leader. The young mercenary stood upright. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at Long Yunzhan, Xiao Jin and the others as she stood up and looked at the brothers. I'll remind you one last time, no matter what happens tomorrow, just act according to your capabilities. The world group doesn't need people who fight with their lives on the line, but we need people who are obedient. The young mercenaries nodded. After the youths dispersed, only Long Yunzhan, Xiao Jin, and the others remained in the entire hall. What do you think about the Ling King's tomb mission? Long Yunzhan asked expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo had specially asked them to stay behind, so there must be something regarding the mission that she wanted to tell them. Yiqing Luo pinched her eyebrows and put the stack of information back into her hands. What kind of team is that gold-ranked mercenary group? Did Peach mention it? Their gazes all focused on Xiao Jin. However, he saw that Xiao Jin's expression was a little unnatural. His gaze suddenly met Long Yunzhan's, and then he subconsciously looked away. When it finally landed on Yan Xiaoyi snorted softly and looked away. Xiao Jin opened his mouth. He pursed his lips tightly and lowered his eyes, not saying a word. Yiqing Luo looked suspiciously at the both of them. Recalling Peach's sly smile, she couldn't help but gave a light cough. Could it be, when the two of them went to the 3000 Peach Blossom group to buy information about the Ling King's tomb, they met Peach, and then, something unspeakable happened. Chapter 798. It's the Death God Mercenary Group. Xiao Jin took some time before he opened his mouth weakly. Finishing his words, his vision shot towards Yan Xiaoyi's direction as his thin lips tightened. Yiqing Luo temporarily kept her curiosity and gossip as she lowered her eyelids and looked at the information in her hands. Death God Mercenary Group. She had heard of this name before. It should be said that she had seen this mercenary group's name on the Mercenary Association's honor board. Gold-ranked Mercenary Association, which was ranked third on the honor board. The number of over 9,000 people, and all of them were Nirvana Realm's elites. Among them, there were close to 500 alchemists and 500 armament masters. This was a real large-scale powerhouse. Death God Mercenary Group's group leader's name was the Sky Mystic Overlord who had the highest hopes in Nirvana realm, Zongjing Si-Han. The eldest young master of the Zongjing family who was the leader of the East Continent's cultivators was a genius child since young, and when he grew up, he did not disappoint. Now that he was just 25 years old, his name had already spread far and wide, and he had even established his own force. After this mercenary group's name was revealed, even Long Yunjan's expression changed slightly. Following Death God Mercenary Group to Ling King's tomb, wouldn't it reduce the danger? Yiqing Luo looked at their solemn expressions as she consoled them. Death God Mercenary Group won't put us in their eyes. On the contrary, we can borrow their strength to go deeper into the tomb. Everyone broke out in cold sweat. Were they sure that it would be so smooth? Yiqing Luo suddenly put on a serious expression. I'm very clear about the dangers in Ling King's tomb. Even if God Thief follows along, I'm not assured so. No matter what happens, I hope you can protect everyone, and if the situation is not right, immediately evacuate. Long Yunjan frowned as he gazed deeply at her. You intend to go alone? Not necessarily. Yiqing Luo interrupted his words. I won't joke around with my own life. If it was really dangerous, it might harm their brothers' lives, so the world group must evacuate. After that she would observe the situation before deciding if she should go alone. Perhaps she could follow the Death God Mercenary Group to the place where the Corpse King was guarded. Whether she could complete the mission or not, it was up to fate. The few of them exchanged glances but didn't say a word. Yiqing Luo didn't open her mouth as she placed all her attention on the information in her hands, memorizing all the information regarding Ling King's tomb into her mind. The next day, the group went to the Ling King's tomb. It was not even 5:00 in the morning when the group set off. They walked until noon before they arrived at the tomb of the Ling King. The location of the Ling King's tomb was extremely remote, at the edge of the primal chaos realm. If he was the slightest bit careless, it was very likely that he would miss the location of the Ling King's tomb and directly enter the chaotic realm. It was all because of Yiqing Luo, who had memorized all the information about the Ling King's tomb. Following the outer perimeter map provided by Peach, the group of them stood safely at the entrance of the Ling King's tomb. Just as Holy Pirate had said, there were mountains surrounding them and a flood dragon outside. It was extremely dangerous. Even though they were standing outside the tomb, they could still feel the bone-chilling aura slowly approaching them. It made people shiver continuously, and goosebumps appeared on their skin. Around the entrance, there were still water droplets dripping from the stalactites. The dripping sound of water added a tinge of ear-piercing and treacherous to this appalling atmosphere. Some of the youngsters were already trembling slightly as their expressions turned steely green. Zhao Bo, who was standing in front, looked at the entrance of the tomb as his brows creased. Group leader, vice group leader, are we waiting for the Death God Mercenary Group or going in first? Chapter 799. If the Death God Mercenary Group entered King Ling's tomb first, they would definitely send someone to guard the entrance of the tomb, not allowing other mercenary groups or tomb robbers to enter. Being in a high position, especially for a mercenary group like them who were ranked third on the honor board, there would definitely be many people who would take the opportunity to give them a fatal blow while they were on a mission. Because of this, if they waited for the Death God Mercenary Group to arrive, they might be treated as a killer group with ill intentions. Not only would they attract the Death God Mercenary Group's suspicions, they might not even have the chance to enter King Ling's tomb. This was the reason why Yiqing Luo urged the youngsters to set off early in the morning. If they met in the tomb, the Death God Mercenary Group would only think of their small team as a group of children who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth and were not afraid of death. Yiqing Luo called out Shiju and asked it to search around. As for herself, she released her perception and led the youngsters towards the entrance of King Ling's tomb. The nearer they got, the more they sensed a damp smell along with the yin wind. That smell was extremely strange as it filled their nostrils with a musty stench, making one's stomach churn. Yiqing Luo's brows creased. Even though she had been on countless of bloody corpses on the battlefield and had smelled all kinds of corpse stench, towards this smell, she was not used to it. The brothers behind her would probably find it harder to adapt. Her fingertips swept across the profound phoenix ring and a palm-sized jade box appeared in her palm. Yiqing Luo passed the box over. Everyone swallow one pill before entering. The box was passed down one by one, and after those youngsters swallowed the pill, that pungent moldy smell instantly disappeared and their noses were filled with a refreshing smell. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the youngsters' dumbstruck expressions. This was the fresh air pill which she had refined through the night. The corpse qi in the tomb was dense, and as it was in the dark all year round, the air would definitely not circulate well. If one was slightly careless, it was possible to be corroded by the yin qi. Hence she specially refined this kind of low-grade medicinal pill which was of little value. The few of them had just stepped into the tomb entrance when Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi carried two huge luminous pearls as they walked at the front. Tong Ziqing and Long Yunzhan walked at the back. The entire pitch-black cave became much brighter. The tomb's rock walls were still dripping with water. It was cold and smooth to the touch, extremely disgusting. If it weren't for the fact that these youths couldn't smell the stench, they would have probably vomited by now. However, the strange totem that was outlined on the dripping rock walls, as well as the feeling of yin qi assaulting them, made them feel an inexplicable sense of irritation. More than 90 people walked with trepidation for about the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Yiqing Luo suddenly stopped in her tracks. Her gaze was fixed on a certain spot, and her expression suddenly became cold. Gather. Be careful. The 90 or so mercenaries immediately moved closer to their brothers, looking around vigilantly with a serious expression on their faces. After a moment of silence, the surroundings were quiet. Apart from their breathing, there was no other sound. The youths remained vigilant. Yiqing Luo slowly walked past Qiao Jin and walked to the front as her gaze swept across the surrounding rock walls. Her half-squinted charming eyes, in this strange tomb, seemed especially gloomy and cold. The corners of her mouth curled into a cold smile. She moved her 5 fingers, and a red feather fan appeared on her fingertips like a flame. You have the guts to follow, but don't have the guts to show yourself. Her words had just ended when Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly swayed, and in a blink of an eye, she seemed to have blended into the air. Immediately after, Yiqing Luo's figure appeared beside one of the rock walls, and her 5 fingers pinched the top of the rock wall. Chapter 800. When the rock wall was peeled off, there were hands, legs and also a head. His neck was pressed against by Yiqing Luo's feather fan. The youngsters were instantly shocked as they looked at the person in Yiqing Luo's hand who was like a rock wall. Following that, the crowd reacted swiftly as they looked at the surrounding rock walls, staring at those strange contours of the rock walls. Qiao Jin and the others had already leapt up as they speedily pounced towards the direction of those rock walls. No wonder when they entered the tomb, their hearts felt extremely uneasy and inexplicably gloomy. It turned out that ever since they entered the tomb, they had been targeted. Qiao Jin and the others moved, and those rock wall people who were attached to the rock walls also gave up on their disguise. One by one, they flew out from the rock walls and directly charged towards the 90 over young mercenaries. Luckily these youngsters had already been trained by Yiqing Luo and the others, and their reaction speed was extremely fast. At the instant when the rock wall people charged over, the young mercenaries swiftly got into formation as they swiftly drew out their own weapons and retaliated. It looked like these rock wall people totally didn't care about their comrades' life and death. Or perhaps, the person in her hand was merely a small fry. Yiqing Luo's fingers locked onto the person in her hand as her feather fan curled slightly, drawing a beautiful arc. Her fingers opened up and the rock wall softly fell beneath her feet as fresh blood mixed with the wet soil on the ground. Following that, Yiqing Luo's feet moved as she dashed into this chaotic battle. There were around 20 over rock wall people and their bodies were plastered on the rock wall as a disguise, but it didn't affect their battle agility at all. Their teamwork was also very orderly. Every move seemed to be compatible with their companions. It was extremely natural. Their attacks were extremely ferocious. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes and after a few twists and turns, she landed next to Xiao Bo. Xiao Bo, these people's skills don't look like an ordinary organization. To put it more accurately, they didn't look like professional killers from the killer hole. Their skills and moves, as well as the degree of tacit coordination, on the contrary. It seemed like a certain team. I discovered it too. Xiao Bo raised his leg and fiercely kicked away a cliff man that was pouncing towards him. His face was slightly pale. The opponent is very strong. At the very least, his profound rank should be above Mystic Profound rank 3, and his moves are very direct. Indeed. When she saw the ambush, Yiqing Luo's first reaction was, these people were the killers sent by Shengguan Liuli. But after fighting for a while, Yiqing Luo had completely dispelled this idea. Shengguan Liuli, Yan Zhan and Jitsang Tian, these three people absolutely didn't have such a powerful trump card, otherwise they would have taken it out long ago as their capital to flaunt their prowess. Could they be from the Blood Demon group? Or, the two of them were discussing when suddenly that rock wall man who was kicked away, under the support of his comrade, suddenly made a turn and directly attacked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as she swiftly retreated. However, he was still a step too late. The rock man's 5 fingers had already locked onto Yiqing Luo's wrist. Yiqing Luo flipped the feather fan in her right hand and swiftly struck towards the rock man's head. That rock wall man wasn't afraid at all as he directly clasped Yiqing Luo's left index finger as his fingertip moved slightly. However, in the next second, the rock man was dumbfounded. Even though his face was disguised by the rock wall, it couldn't conceal the other party's expression. Yiqing Luo's left index finger was encircled by a demonic red glow as the profound phoenix ring stuck onto her skin tightly. No matter how much strength the rock wall man used, it was unable to make the profound phoenix ring show any signs of falling off. Yiqing Luo's gaze instantly turned serene. Chapter 801. The rock wall man crashed onto the sharp rock wall with a bang. Those sharp stones pierced right through the rock wall man's heart. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the profound phoenix ring on her finger. The other party's motive was the profound phoenix ring. After finding out the destination of her mission, they specially disguised it as a rock wall, just to snatch the profound phoenix ring when she was unprepared. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she thought of the rock wall men's skills and chemistry that Xiao Bo had analyzed. Could it be? Not Godless Island's people. A lowly voice with an extremely cold tone came from behind him. That pink dumpling, unknowingly stood behind her, its empty and soundless eyes gazed at Yiqing Luo as it repeated word by word, not Godless Island. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. Not Godless Island. In her memory, there was only that one time when Godless Island sent out the 3 evils to snatch her profound phoenix ring. Other than Godless Island, who else would be interested in the profound phoenix ring? Could it be that the news of her possessing the profound phoenix ring had been leaked out? No. It couldn't be. If the Overlord's profound phoenix ring fell into the hands of a frail young lady, it would definitely be snatched by numerous high-level cultivators. Who didn't want to possess the Overlord's divine relic? Moreover, Mo Ying's appearance in Godless Island seemed to have some kind of unexplainable relationship. When she first met Godless Island's 3 evils, she met Mo Ying. Today, the moment she thought of whether these people were from Godless Island, Mo Ying immediately denied it. How could Mo Ying be so sure? Qing Luo, you have the soul-chasing powder on you. Long Yunzhan's cold voice revealed a hint of solemnity. He swiftly went forward and grabbed Yi Qing Luo's arm. He saw a green glow on Yi Qing Luo's elbow, faintly flashing. If one didn't look closely, it was impossible to detect. Yi Qing Luo's fingertip brushed past that green glow, and indeed a thin layer of powder was swept off. Her half-squinted eyes, under the illumination of the luminous pearl, were suffused with a faint cold glint. The soul-chasing powder, as the name suggested, would chase the soul to the ends of the earth, relentlessly following it. It was used to track a person's whereabouts. He only needed to sprinkle a bit of soul-chasing powder, and he would be able to track that person for up to 3 days. As for the soul-chasing powder, it would melt upon contact with water. The person who had been poisoned by it would not even notice it. "Who were you in contact with last night?" Long Yun-Zhan asked solemnly. Last night, after leaving the Three Springs sect, she went straight to the old house. Wait a minute, Three Springs sect. Yi Fengru. Yes, at the dinner table yesterday, Yi Fengru sat next to her. No wonder he had inexplicably mentioned her situation in the academy to Yi Tianquang and the old ancestor, and even told them about her refusal to enter the class of gods. This method was clearly to let Yi Tianquang and the elder ancestor's attitude affect her emotions, and then take the opportunity to sprinkle soul-chasing powder on her arm. What was his purpose in doing this? Why would he want to know her whereabouts? Could it be that the ambush by the rock men had something to do with Yi Fengru? Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned increasingly gloomy and cold. She casually wiped the dripping water on the rock wall and dissolved the soul-chasing powder on her arm. When her vision was fixed on the rock men again, her lips suddenly curled into a chilly smile. The feather fan in her hand was like a dancing red flame, constantly blooming the most beautiful fireworks. Her action was extremely fast. The target of these rock men was originally to snatch the profound phoenix ring. But for some reason, the profound phoenix ring could not be removed from Yi Qing Luo's hand. Chapter 802. These youngsters were able to see through all their attacks in the shortest time possible, and after pondering for a few breaths, they were able to come up with a set of methods to restrain them. Their power of understanding and potential was simply too shocking. Immediately, one of the rock wall men decided to retreat. But unexpectedly, just as he said this word, a gust of chilly wind struck him. The rock wall man had not regained his senses when a tight, icy cold sensation pressed against his neck. By the side of his ear was a young lady's enchanting laughter. "Who are you?" To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. This was an unchanging logic since ancient times. These people didn't care about their comrades' lives, so the only way was to ferret out the leader among them. Indeed, those 10 over rock wall men who were still alive all stopped their attacks and gathered together as they stared vigilantly at Yi Qing Luo's direction. That rock wall man didn't seem to have expected that he would be suppressed so easily. That red feather fan on his neck seemed to have no lethality at all, but the higher-ups had specially instructed him to be careful of the red feather fan in Yi Qing Luo's hands. The rock wall man didn't dare to move. He didn't say a word, and Yi Qing Luo was neither anxious nor impatient. She calmly flicked her fingers and the red feather fan cut open the rock wall, which the rock wall man had disguised himself as it stuck close to his skin, leaving a shallow mark. Fresh blood oozed out. "There's someone else in the tomb. Who actually entered Ling Ling King's tomb before us?" Damn it, thinking of how dangerous Ling Ling King's tomb was, no one dared to explore, so we didn't send anyone over to guard last night. I didn't expect. Forget it, let's go over and take a look first. The voices of several people came from the direction of the entrance of the tomb. Their voices weren't soft and sounded extremely spacious. Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned as a glint flashed past her eyes. The Death God mercenary group's men had arrived. Just as Yi Qing Luo was looking at the tomb entrance, the rock wall man on her wrist took the opportunity when she wasn't prepared and struck towards Yi Qing Luo's chest. Following that, his entire body squatted down. Yi Qing Luo acutely sensed the danger and swiftly evaded, giving the rock wall man a chance to escape. But in a blink of an eye, that bunch of rock wall men drilled into the tomb entrance and disappeared without a trace. Trying to escape. Qiao Jin's expression changed greatly, and he was about to give chase. However, at the corner of the tomb, a group of people walked out and stopped them. A group of about 30 people came over. He was wearing a blue mercenary group uniform. The front and back of the clothes were embroidered with a large, kill character using golden thread. Standing at the very front were two delicate-looking youths holding night-luminescent pearls. Then, there were 3 people with extraordinary auras. 2 men and 1 woman, the expressions on their faces were almost cold. The most eye-catching person was the woman. She was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal at all. Just a single glance at her would cause one to fall head over heels for her. After seeing this lady's looks, that whatever 3 spring cities' #1 beauty Yi Qing Qian, whatever southern continent's beauty Lan Ling Nua, had completely turned into dregs. The 2 men by her side, one hot and one cold, were like the woman's guardian deities. Who are you people? Do you know what this place is? Who allowed you to come in? A sharp and rude voice came from behind the 3 men. Yi Qing Luo and the others then discovered that behind those 2 men, there was a 14 to 15-year-old delicate young lady. A series of questions bombarded down, making Yan Xiao Yi, who wasn't in a good mood, frown tightly. We haven't asked who you people are yet. Do you know what place this is? This is a tomb. Don't tell me this is your house. And you don't allow us to enter. Pfft. The youngsters couldn't help but burst out laughing. These words were simply too sarcastic. Silently waiting for Yi Qing Luo to finish her sentence, that beautiful lady then curled her red lips and slowly took a step forward. Her attitude was still cold and arrogant. Little girl, since you know who we are, you still dare to point your spear at us. Aren't you worried about affecting your mercenary group? An irrelevant answer. Therefore, he changed the topic. A threat? Yi Qing Luo chuckled. Since the Death God mercenary group doesn't dare to deny it, then it means that they have admitted what I said. Since the Death God mercenary group has already targeted my group, why should I worry about whether it will affect my group or not? To tell the truth, Yi Qing Luo really hadn't thought about it. He would clash with the Killing God mercenary group right from the start. However, thinking about it, it made sense. She was able to find out from the 3,000 peach blossoms that the Death God mercenary group was going to King Ling's tomb for a mission. The Death God mercenary group naturally knew that the world group was going to King Ling's tomb for a mission. But what made Yi Qing Luo puzzled was, why was the Death God mercenary group's target the profound phoenix ring? The expression on his face had already returned to its usual gentle and calm state. The eyes that looked at Yi Qing Luo were filled with sincerity. Yi Qing Luo sneered without hesitation, I don't believe you. Ha ha ha. Yi Fingru laughed heartily. His chest heaved up and down as he laughed heartily. Since that's the case, 7th sister, please hand over the profound phoenix ring. He was very direct. Reason. Yi Qing Luo walked slowly to the front of Yi Fengru and stood still. There was no change in the expression on her face. However, Long Yunzhan and the others were all nervous. The opponent was a gold-ranked mercenary group. Even if there were only 30 people, they had no chance of winning. What's more, there were definitely many Death God mercenary group outside the tomb. Chapter 805. 7th sister is still young, such a precious thing, it's better to hand it over to second brother for safekeeping. Yi Fengru's smile was still warm. He stretched out his hand and slowly placed it on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Like a brother, loving his sister, he patted her on the shoulder. His arm, up and down. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold, and just as his arm was about to fall, the hand holding the feather fan flipped over and pressed against Yifeng Ru's arm. At the same time, Yifeng Ru's figure retreated a few steps. That extended arm, the powder hidden in the gaps of his nails, scattered down like smoke. You dare to poison Qing Luo? Xiao Jin's expression was extremely ugly as he clenched the gold coin darts in his hand, as though the moment the command was given, he would absolutely fight to the death with the other party. Poison. The young mercenaries' expressions changed immediately as they looked at Yifeng Ru with vigilance and disgust. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. She should be glad that her nose was sensitive, and when she got close to Yifeng Ru, she could smell the faint herbal smell on him. This was the herbal smell that an alchemist would have on them. But the smell on Yifeng Ru was not like an ordinary alchemist's fragrance. But it was a kind of strange smell. Very faint, almost undetectable. If she didn't guess wrongly, Yifeng Ru should not be an orthodox alchemist, but a dark alchemist. The so-called dark alchemist was not like ordinary alchemists who refined those kinds of stabilizing pills to raise their profound grade, heal injuries, etc. What they refined were all kinds of strange and complicated poisons. Like soul-chasing powder, corpse-dissolving powder, etc., were all refined by dark alchemists. Seventh sister's reaction is really fast, no wonder eldest sister lost to you. Yifeng Ru didn't seem to be flustered from being caught red-handed poisoning. He only gave a gentle smile as he wiped off the powder hidden in his fingernails, but no matter how fast seventh sister's reaction is, no matter how powerful you are, I'm afraid you won't be able to fight against 4 people. His tone was gentle and indifferent. Those 30 over Death God mercenary group's mercenaries cooperated as they took a step forward. How could Xiao Jin and the rest fall behind as they also took a step forward? Yifeng Ru swept them a glance as his brows couldn't conceal the disdain in his eyes. Moreover, you still have a bunch of burdens behind you. I'm sure seventh sister won't bear for them to get into trouble. Burdens. The young mercenaries' expressions turned extremely ugly as they gritted their teeth and stared at burdens. This seemingly cultured and refined man, why was his words so irritating? Yi, fong, yi, fong, yi. That pair of enchanting and charming eyes, like the bright stars in the sky, flowed with charm. Chapter 806. Looking at Yiqing Luo's smiling face, Yifeng Ru's gentle pupils suddenly widened. As though he was struck by lightning, he froze on the spot. The next second, Yifeng Ru's hand covered his chest as his face turned pale, as his slender body staggered and fell backwards. Ru! Feng Ru! Brother Ru! The 3 people behind, upon sensing Yifeng Ru's abnormal state, immediately rushed up to support him. Yiqing Luo, what did you do to Brother Ru? The young lady's hands hugged Yifeng Ru's arm tightly. Her face was filled with hatred and resentment towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo raised her brows, her fingertips brushed past her chin, her pink lips moved slightly, as she said word by word, just giving her a taste of her own medicine. I believe, with second brother's ability, it should be no problem to cure this poison. Yifeng Ru's breathing suddenly became hurried. The muscles on his face were trembling slightly. The 5 fingers which were pressed on his chest gradually tightened, clenching into a fist shape. The green veins were already bulging. Cure. If he could cure this poison, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Yifeng Ru only felt a sudden numbing feeling in his heart, followed by a sharp pain as though it was being pierced by needles. Before he could adapt to this pain, his heart suddenly inflated, as though it was about to explode any time. Yifeng Ru had refined poison for more than 10 years, but had never met such a strange poison. The more he thought, the more obvious the swelling feeling in his heart became. His entire face was twisted, as his hands were clenched tightly, in extreme pain. That young lady's eyes were red, as big beads of tears flowed down. Brother Ru. Brother Ru. The beautiful lady's eyes were cold, as she looked at Yi Qing Luo coldly. Hand over the antidote. Since I'm going to die anyway, why don't I drag you all to accompany me in death? Yi Qing Luo smiled charmingly. You all think that you're so smart, but it's just the remaining tricks that I'm playing. What was a wise man submits to circumstances? If she really handed over the profound phoenix ring, would the death god mercenary group really let them off? Yi Fengru knew the origin of the profound phoenix ring, so naturally he knew the original owner of this ring. Yi Fengru did not dare to offend Dmo Xian. Furthermore, they had to maintain the reputation of the death god mercenary group. Once their objective was achieved, none of the world group would be able to escape. Yi Qing Luo was tired of playing this kind of lousy tricks in her past life. Yi Fengru coaxed her like she was a child. You. The young lady's eyes were red as she clenched her fists tightly. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling, but she couldn't do anything to Yi Qing Luo. These two men and one woman were obviously the core members of the death god mercenary group. They were extremely concerned about Yi Fengru. This also meant that Yi Fengru's position in the death god mercenary group was not low, and he was brothers who had gone through fire and water with these core members. This knowledge made Yi Qing Luo heave a sigh of relief. Yi Fengru's life was in her hands. The death god mercenary group would temporarily not make a move on them. The two groups of people faced each other, and no one moved. Only Yi Fengru's increasingly ragged breathing and his pained voice resounded in the spacious tomb. The more she listened, the sadder she cried. The two men and one woman's expressions turned uglier by the minute. As though there was no other way, one of the delicate-looking men opened his mouth with a steely green face. The world group will let you leave. Hand over the antidote. Did I say that I'm leaving? Yi Qing Luo's eyes curved as she smiled in an extremely casual manner. The beautiful lady's willowy brows creased into a bundle. Don't push your luck. Chapter 807. His words caused those people to choke, their expressions unsightly, but they had no way to retort. Yi Qing Luo's gaze lightly swept past Yi Fengru, whose face was filled with pain. Her gaze was indifferent, totally not like she was looking at her second brother, but an insignificant stranger. She didn't care whether he lived or died. The few people in the death god mercenary group didn't dare to use Yi Fengru's life to bet if Yi Qing Luo really didn't care about him, this second brother. Recalling the time when he was in the dark, he saw Yi Qing Luo expressionlessly slit the neck of the stone wall man. His technique was skillful and his expression was cold. It was completely unlike the emotions a 15-year-old girl should have. At this moment, the god-slaying mercenary group only felt that this lady was too cold-blooded. He was so cold-blooded that he couldn't feel any emotion from her. After a long time, the beautiful woman lowered her eyes and looked at Yi Fengru, who was leaning against her arm. She opened her mouth and said, "What do you want?" "Mission." Yi Qing Luo replied simply, "I need the death god mercenary group to help us complete the mission." The death god mercenary group did not participate in the random missions. But they were aware of the situation of this event. The matter of the world group drawing a random scroll which had never appeared in all these years had already spread throughout the entire mercenary world. "What kind of mission did you draw for the tomb of the Ling King?" "Guard the zombie king." Yi Qing Luo didn't hide anything. She had originally planned to borrow the strength of the death god mercenary group to see if they could complete the mission. Now that such a good opportunity had been presented to her, how could she reject it? Guardian Zombie King. The expressions of the two men and one woman instantly turned ashen. They looked at each other and frowned. Up until now, no one has been able to enter the deeper layers of the tomb. The place guarding the corpse kings is in front of the tomb's main tomb. Even we can't reach that place. You don't need to tell me whether or not you can do it. Yiqing Luo replied coldly, "My motive is to guard the corpse king, you only need to tell me, to go or not." The beautiful woman's exquisite and beautiful face was slightly twisted. The three of them looked at each other for a long time without saying anything. They were probably using the mercenary group's emblem to communicate with each other internally. Yiqing Luo didn't rush them as she quietly waited for their decision. Not long later, the beautiful lady's face sunk as she looked at Yiqing Luo. "All right, I represent the Death God mercenary group to agree to your request. Now can you help Ru to detoxify the poison?" Yi Fengru, who was leaning on the woman's arm, couldn't help but tremble. It was clear that he couldn't find anything strange in Yi Fengru's body even with his profound qi. Chapter 808. Kitty. Yiqing Luo calmly called out to Kitty Li. Kitty Li winked at that young lady and gave a heavy harumph. When she turned back to look at Yiqing Luo, her face was already smiling sweetly like a child. Yiqing Luo pulled Kitty Li behind her and shot a glance at the solemn-looking man's hand as she smiled calmly. "Azura group leader must be careful. If you hurt any part of my brother, I will leave it untouched and let my dear brother suffer the same injury." The man's tightly clenched hands suddenly loosened. A pair of sharp eyes stared coldly at Yiqing Luo, as though he wanted to see through her eyes, to see through her soul. However, the man only saw an endless whirlpool in that pair of deep pupils. Just a little more and he would have fallen into that whirlpool, unable to climb out. Both parties reached an agreement. Yiqing Luo wasn't that silly to help Yi Fengru detoxify the poison. She only helped Yi Fengru to alleviate the pain in his heart. Every 2 hours, Yi Fengru would once again experience the excruciating pain that pierced his heart and bones. Azura mercenary group was naturally infuriated, but there was nothing they could do. After Yi Fengru regained consciousness, he found out that Azura mercenary group had signed an agreement with Yiqing Luo because of him. He clutched his heart, and the moment he thought of that swelling pain earlier, his body couldn't help but tremble slightly, which had already formed an instinctive fear. Yi Fengru had just stood up with the help of 2 men. When he raised his eyes, he met with a pair of beautiful smiling faces. The young lady's smile was enchanting, her long and narrow eyes were extremely charming. Her pink lips opened and closed, her sweet voice, word by word, was clearly transmitted into his ears. "Thank you, second brother, for your advice. If it wasn't for Yi Fengru, Yiqing Luo would definitely not use such means to threaten the Azura mercenary group to cooperate." Yi Fengru heard the sarcasm in Yiqing Luo's words and his body trembled, almost falling onto the ground. This completely explained what was called moving a rock to smash one's own feet. After signing the agreement, Yiqing Luo also found out that the solemn Azura mercenary group leader was called Nangong Firen. That delicate-looking man was called Wei Beilai, the Azura mercenary group's executive group leader. The beautiful woman was called Zi Qianshan, and she was the vice-captain of the Azura group. The 14-year-old girl was Nangong Firen's twin sister, Nangong Lin. She wasn't a mercenary of the god-slaying mercenary group. She just followed them to gain some experience. After understanding everything, Yi Fengru was well rested and could move on his own. The 2 groups of people headed into the depths of the tomb one after the other. Yiqing Luo made the Azura group walk in front to open up the path, while they followed closely behind about 20 steps to the left. Qing Luo. Can they be trusted? Xiao Jin's brows creased as he used the mercenary group badge to transmit his voice. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc. Untrustworthy, but there is still value in using him. With just their strength, it was likely that they would not be able to pass through the layers of traps and formations in the tomb and reach the main tomb. Before Yi Fengru could find a way to save himself, the god-slaying mercenary group could only fulfill their deal. "Everyone be careful, in case these hypocrites do something secretly," Yiqing Luo reminded them. The god-slaying mercenary group had always been ranked third on the honor board, so naturally they were arrogant and proud, so how would they be willing to lower their status to deal with these youngsters? Especially when they were threatened by a bunch of youngsters who totally didn't put them in their eyes. It was inevitable that they would use the same method to threaten them. If Yi Fingru had poisoned her brother, Yi Qing Luo couldn't guarantee that she had all the antidotes on her. Just as she was saying that, the god-slaying mercenary group who were 20 steps away suddenly shouted angrily, "Not good. There's a riot in the tomb." Immediately following that, the 30 over god-slaying mercenary group's mercenaries turned around and swarmed towards them. The world group's youngsters were immediately on high alert as they displayed a defensive formation. Suddenly, a deafening sound rang out beside his ear. Chapter 809. The entire tomb started to shake violently. Pieces of gravel started to fall from the surrounding steep rock walls. Nangong Firen was running at the forefront, and on seeing this bunch of young mercenaries still standing there foolishly blocking the way, she angrily shouted, "Get lost! Do you want to die here?" As the ground shook, cracks began to appear on it. The young mercenaries still didn't move as they supported each other and stood on the same spot, waiting for Yi Qing Luo's instructions. Towards danger, Yi Qing Luo had an instinctive sense. When the tomb started to shake violently, Yi Qing Luo felt an unprecedented sense of panic. Faintly, there was an intense scorching feeling surging from her profound jade heart. This scorching feeling wasn't the same as when she was probing other people's profound jade heart grade or profound grade. But it was a kind of, like a raging fire was lingering around her profound jade heart, as though there was an intense reaction. Yi Qing Luo suppressed this discomfort as her gaze swept across the Azura god group who had already flocked over. Her face turned slightly pale as she berated sternly, "Idiots! If you don't want to die, don't run over here." The tomb's ground had already cracked and the surrounding rock walls had fallen into gravel. If they were to move swiftly now, it would only cause the tomb to collapse. Now they were only at the periphery of King Ling's tomb, and this place was the easiest to collapse. If it was as expected, the entrance of the tomb had already been blocked by the collapsed boulders. The Azura god group's people actually made such a huge commotion as they tried to run back. Wouldn't it accelerate the shaking of the tomb's periphery, which was originally on the verge of collapse? When had the Azura god group ever been scolded as idiots, and it was even scolded by a young lass, so how could they feel at ease? Get lost! The Azura god group had already rushed over to their side as Nangong Firen bellowed with a steely green face. "You're hopelessly stupid." Yi Qing Luo took a step back as she avoided Nangong Firen's outstretched hand. This action made the scorching feeling in her chest become even more intense. She could even feel that there was a ball of extremely vigorous flame burning in her heart. Rumble, just at this moment, the place where they were standing shook violently as the ground collapsed. Everyone's feet were on empty ground as their bodies rapidly fell downwards. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and fear. Only Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes tightly as her face overflowed with pain. Her slender, white little hand firmly pressed down on her profound heart jade. For some reason, she felt as if there was a voice by her ear, constantly calling out to her. However, she could not hear the summoning words clearly. Yi Qing Luo and the others were in the tomb and didn't know that the entire outside the tomb was filled with dark clouds, gloomy and gloomy. In the air, there was a suffocating chill. From time to time, lightning flashed, thunder roared, and wind and clouds rose. A powerful storm current rushed into the sky from the center of the tomb. However, in an instant, the storm dissipated into thin air and disappeared. The Imperial Palace. This strong movement made Dmo Xian, who was bending over the table and handling some matters, frowned. As he stood up, his gorgeous purple robe fluttered in the wind. His black hair cascaded over his shoulders like clouds and smoke. His slender figure was smooth and incomparably breathtaking. However, the man's peerlessly handsome face and his long and narrow obsidian-like black eyes clearly had a faint demonic charm, but at this moment, there was a thick and cold glint. Chapter 8:10. The moment the world group's mercenaries fell, under Yi Qing Luo's instructions, they used their profound qi to lighten their bodies and finally landed stably on the ground. As for the Azura group, they were not so lucky. The sudden collapse made them unable to react for a moment. When Nangong Firen and the others saw Yi Qing Luo and the others' actions, they immediately released their profound qi, totally disregarding their own group members. When the group of people stood firmly on the ground, there were no casualties on the world group's side. As for the God Killer group, 2 members had fallen to their deaths, and there were more than 10 who had hurriedly released their qi when they landed, but in the situation of being too flustered, they had injured their legs. Where are we? Nangong Lin, who was hiding behind Nangong Firen, asked in a trembling voice. Nangong Firen's face was ashen and she did not reply. The 2 mercenary groups had met with an accident at the same time, but on their side, there were casualties and injuries. On the contrary, the brat mercenary group that they looked down upon was unscathed, and they began to adapt to the current situation in an orderly manner. How could he, the leader of the gold mercenary group, endure this? Captain. Yi Fingru's expression didn't look any better. The night luminescent pearls in their hands had fallen somewhere, and the surroundings were dark. Don't speak. Yi Qing Luo suppressed her voice as she spoke in a deep and cold voice. Xiao Yi, where's the luminous pearl? As Yan Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin were falling, they quickly kept the luminous pearl into their space pockets. In a place like the tomb, the luminous pearl was their only source of light. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's question, Yan Xiao Yi immediately took out the luminous pearl. The surroundings were faintly discernible under the illumination of the luminous pearls. Then, Xiao Jin also took out his night luminescent pearl. The surrounding environment was gradually reflected in everyone's eyes. This was a bottomless tunnel. It was extremely spacious, about the width of 10 adults walking side by side. The air was cold and damp, and there were even green vines growing on the walls. Touching it with his hand, it felt sticky and disgusting. This should be the middle layer of the Ling King's tomb. Yi Qing Luo carefully sized up the surroundings. From the emptiness of the voice and the circulation of the air, he could roughly tell. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. The Ling King's tomb had always been the most secure place and most people would not enter it. How could the periphery of the tomb collapse? That kind of collapse was like a sudden earthquake. Then, the entire tomb began to crack, and finally collapsed. Completely, it did not seem like a natural collapse. Instead, it was a collapse caused by the depths of the tomb. Could it be that someone had entered the tomb before them, or even reached the lowest level of the tomb, and then triggered some sort of mechanism that caused the tomb to collapse? How do you know that this is the middle level of the Ling King's tomb? Zi Qianqian's beautiful eyes stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo as a glint of jealousy flashed past her eyes. Ever since Yi Qing Luo appeared, her beauty and her ability seemed to have been crushed by Yi Qing Luo till she had no way to retaliate. Zi Qianqian, who had always been the center of attention, could not tolerate another existence that was even more dazzling than her. Yi Qing Luo totally didn't bother about Zi Qianqian's question, as she concentrated all her attention on the surrounding environment. Zi Qianqian's face darkened, and an embarrassed look appeared on his face. He arrogantly raised his head and lightly snorted, "You really think that you are the backbone of the group? You casually order others around and spout nonsense. Do you take us for fools?" Chapter 8:11. You. Don't be in a hurry to deny it. Yi Qing Luo glanced at her coldly, and in the tranquil and strange tomb, that gaze seemed especially eerie. Immediately after that, Yiqing Luo turned her head around and continued looking at the direction where the green vines were growing as she said, "Now, the one who is at a disadvantage is not us, the world group." This sentence successfully made Zi Qianqian shut his mouth unwillingly. Indeed. No matter if it was facing a sudden danger situation, they weren't able to be as calm and composed as Yiqing Luo, accurately giving out instructions. It was their own group members who were able to make the most correct decision under the circumstances where they didn't have any instructions. They couldn't even match up to the world group. They suddenly understood why the world group was able to advance to a bronze plate mercenary group within a day. If they were allowed to develop in future, there would definitely be a spot for them on the Mercenary Association's honor board. Nangong Firen's expression instantly congealed as she glanced sideways at Yifeng-ru. Yifeng-ru's face was pale as he shook his head. He didn't know when his cowardly and incompetent seventh sister had become so bold and courageous. Bones. Bones. Human bones. Suddenly a sharp shriek exploded from the crowd. Nangong Lin was hysterically hugging her head as she recklessly charged over. Her petite body crashed into Yifeng-ru's arms as her arms wrapped tightly around Yifeng-ru's waist. "Brother Ru, these are all dead people's bones." Boo-hoo boo-hoo. Although Yifeng-ru had slowed down the poison in his body, but Yiqing Luo hadn't cleared it for him. Now that he was knocked into by Nangong Lin, Yifeng-ru felt a piercing pain in his heart. Although it was short, but that piercing pain made Yifeng-ru feel a chill down his spine. Without thinking, he directly pushed Nangong Lin away. Ah! Nangong Lin was unsteady as she was pushed onto the ground as both her hands stabbed into the sharp rocks on the ground. Missy's delicate skin was instantly melted by the rocks as red blood seeped out. Blood! Yiqing Luo's expression instantly turned gloomy as she berated sternly, "Block up the blood. This is a tomb and human blood is the easiest to attract yin qi." The young lady was in so much pain that her tears kept flowing, but she didn't forget to raise her head, wanting to argue with Yiqing Luo. But the minute she met Yiqing Luo's pair of chilly charming eyes, she was frightened by her imposing manner and didn't dare to say a single word as she directly pounced into Nangong Firen's arms, crying out in a low voice. Nangong Firen frowned and glanced at Yifeng-ru coldly. He saw Yifeng-ru clutching his heart with a pained expression on his face, as if he hadn't noticed his gaze at all. Nangong Firen frowned and looked away. He quickly took out a handkerchief and stopped the bleeding on Nangong Lin's palm. Chapter 8:12. Even for these mercenaries who had been through hundreds of battles and were used to seeing blood and killing, when they saw the hundreds of broken bones piled up, they were somewhat horrified. Even if they weren't horrified, they weren't able to be like Yiqing Luo, looking at those bones expressionlessly, or even using her feet to lift the bones. The bones shattered upon contact. The shattering sound was extremely ear-piercing in the quiet tomb, making one's heart palpitate. Yiqing Luo was only a 15-year-old young lady. How could she be fearless when facing these eerie white bones? A real 15-year-old girl's way of opening up the eerie white bones should be like Nangong Lin's. This should be a mercenary group who came to the Ling King's tomb to complete a mission. They must have touched some array in the tomb or attracted the corpse qi, causing all of them to lose their lives here. Yiqing Luo played it down as she stood up and gazed ahead. "Since we've reached the middle layer, then let's head straight to the main tomb." Nangong Lin buried her head in Nangong Firen's arms as she raised her head and cried, "I'm not going. I don't want to go." After seeing so many white bones, Nangong Lin, who had never met with any danger, was so terrified that her limbs had turned stiff. Yiqing Luo merely swept a glance at them as her lips curled into a chilly smile. "Of course, you can choose not to follow us. If my second brother's poison acts up, then don't blame me for not abiding by our deal." Nangong Firen and Zi Qianqian instantly stared at Yiqing Luo angrily. I don't have the time to waste with you guys here. Yi Qing Luo called out to her brothers as she walked straight ahead. It was silent in front of them. The long and deep tunnel was pitch black, with no end in sight. Nangong Firen and the others were still standing at the same spot. He glanced sideways at Yi Fengru as he frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Can you cure this poison?" Yi Fengru didn't reply, but the sound of his teeth clenching and his pale face had already replaced all the answers. Nangong Firen's brows creased even tighter as a cold glint shot out from his eyes. "Then we must follow you to the main tomb." The coldness in his words made Yi Fengru's face turn paler. Nangong Firen was blaming him. In other words, Nangong Firen was displeased when he pushed Nangong Lin's lower body. Yi Fengru wanted to explain, but he didn't know how to start. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have enough ability, if it wasn't for the fact that he had underestimated Yi Qing Luo's ability and heartlessness, then he wouldn't have shot himself in the foot, and wouldn't have ended up being used as a tool by Yi Qing Luo to threaten him. Just then, a gust of chilly wind blew over. Nangong Lin's entire body was trembling, and tears were already flowing out of her eyes.